Hi, I'm Carl Shusterman. I've been an immigration attorney for over 30 years, and I'm with my assistant, Joanna Hernandez, and we're going to give you an introduction to how to get a green card through employment.
Okay, I'll start, Attorney Shusterman. My first question. How many people obtain green cards through employment each year?
Well, there's a quota under the immigration law, and it's 140,000. And it's kind of a funny quota because if not all the numbers are used up, they're essentially thrown away in the wastebasket and can't be used in the next year.
Can you take me through the various employment-based immigration categories?
Okay, there's quite a few, but we call them the EB 1, 2, and 3, the employment-based first preference, second preference, and third preference. The first preference, though, is split up into 3 different categories. The first category is for people of extraordinary ability, somebody who's risen to the very top of their field. They might be a Nobel Prize winner or something less. We had a reporter from one of the major newspapers who got that classification just last week. Number 2, outstanding professors and researchers. We've done quite a lot of that for either research institutions or for universities. And then 3, which is also very common, if you represent international corporations, somebody who has at least 1 year as an executive or manager abroad can transfer to the United States as an executive or manager. And for all of those 3 categories, there's no waiting times at all. There's just not enough people to fill the quota. Then the second category, the EB2 category, is for people, and again, it's 2 different categories, people with advanced degrees. So, for instance, we represent a lot of physicians, and physicians must have an advanced degree. They must have an MD in order to practice, so they all qualify for an EB2. We also represent computer programmers, and some of them have to have a master's degree for their job. An attorney, a dentist, a lot of different physical therapists, a lot of different professions that require a master's degree. Also, people of, it's not extraordinary ability, but they call it people of exceptional ability can get their green cards through the EB2 category. And it's complicated to explain the difference, but it's kind of a step down. You don't have to have the Nobel Prize or be at the very top of your field, but you have to be higher than the average person to get exceptional ability. And then finally, what most people get is the EB3. That's for professionals and skilled workers in the United States. So that can be your regular systems analyst, can be a nurse, can be, it could be actually a car mechanic. I mean, there's all different ways to do that. And then finally, I just want to mention the EB4 category. It's not one of the traditional employment-based categories, but it is a category that allows certain people, like religious workers and other people who can qualify for green cards through their jobs.
What is PERM?
Well, people in the EB2 and the EB3 categories normally have to show that they're not displacing a U.S. citizen from their job. So we place advertisements for the employer and advertise on the internet, and we have to demonstrate to the Labor Department through the PERM process that there's no qualified U.S. workers to do the job. And there's exceptions to that. The main exception is Schedule A. Registered nurses and physical therapists are designated shortage occupations, and they don't have to go through the PERM advertising process. And there's also another category of people that get national interest waivers. If you can show your job, we do this for a lot of the physicians, but this is not confined just to physicians. If you can show that your job benefits the national interest, and to do a perm application would be contrary to the national interest. Maybe you're a researcher and you're researching some new cancer drug, and for them to say, oh well, there's another PhD researcher and he could take your place and he's a U.S. citizen, and that would screw up the whole the research project, then you can probably get a national interest waiver and you don't have to go through the perm process.
Okay. Which categories of employment-based immigrants must go through the perm process?
Well, yeah, I guess I get a little bit ahead of myself, but it's EB2 and EB3 that normally have to go through perm.
What is the procedure for a person living in the U.S. to become a permanent resident through an offer of employment?
Well, if you're living in the United States, it's usually a 3-step process. We go through the perm process and we advertise the job. After the perm process is over, we submit a petition on behalf of your employer. It's an I-140 petition, and it shows that they have the ability to pay you the prevailing wage and that you have the education and experience needed to do the job. And then finally, when your priority date is reached, we apply for adjustment of status, and that allows you to get a work card, and you're probably already on a temporary visa in this case, but also allows your spouse and kids to get work cards as well, and to get their green cards without leaving the United States.
What is the procedure for a person living abroad?
Well, if you're living abroad, we would still have to do the perm process in the United States with the Labor Department. We would file the I-140 with the appropriate service center of the USCIS in the United States. But then all the papers would be sent to the National Visa Center in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and we go through a sort of an elaborate process about showing them that you have all the paperwork that you need, police clearances and medical exams and paperwork. And then when you have all of those papers and you've paid the proper fees, they forward the paperwork to the U.S. Embassy in your own country, and then you have your interview at the U.S. Embassy in your country. This happens a lot to nurses because there's no temporary visa that, let's say, a nurse from the Philippines can get to work in the United States. So most of the nurses do get their green cards abroad, while most of the other people who get green cards through employment adjust their status in the United States. So I hope this sort of introductory video about how to get a green card through employment has been helpful to you. If you have further questions, please look at our green card through employment page at our website, and I hopefully that'll answer most of your more detailed questions.
Thank you.